Okay, so a friend of mine asked me a question today, and I want to discuss it because I think it really leads into something that I've been trying to focus on with my content as of late. Excuse, and I apologize for the lighting. I got a ring light. I'm still trying to figure out how to work it. I also have to read things, and I'm kind of blind, so my side light is still on. I'm still trying to figure it all out and get the good setup, but here's what we're doing for today. So basically, the conversation we were having was, why does it feel like the current Republican administration is trying to push us into World War III? And the answer to that question is Christian nationalism. I grew up in the evangelical church, and I grew up in a very far-right segment. Right? I used to be an evangelical pastor, and it is very common to pray that the world ends sooner rather than later. And so I'm gonna read these two passages. The first is in Matthew. It's chapter 24. It says, while he was sitting, it starts in verse 3, while he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately and said, tell us, when will these things happen, and what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Then Jesus replied to them, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. You are going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. You are going to hear wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these events are the beginning of birth pains. It goes on to say, then they will hand you over for your persecution, and they will kill you. You will be hated by all the nations because of my name. Then many will take offense, betray one another, and hate one another. Many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will multiply. The love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be delivered. This good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Skipping ahead a little bit, going a couple books forward, going to Luke. In Luke chapter 21, discussing the coming of the Son of Man. It says, then there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and the stars, and there will be anguish on the earth among nations, bewildered by the roaring sea and waves. People will faint from fear and expectation of the things that are coming on the world, because the celestial powers will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and glory. But when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift your heads, because your redemption is near. Another translation of that verse, it says, look up, for your redemption draws nigh. That's kind of the common used one. So that's Luke and Matthew, right? Why does that matter in today's day and age and with the current Republican administration? So for the past 50, 60, 70 years, Christian nationalists, okay, this is a sect within the evangelical church, a sect of Christianity that has taken it upon themselves to try to usher in the end of the world. How do you do that? Well, you do that by negotiating to make sure that there continues to be no two-state solution in Israel and Palestine. You do that by proliferating nuclear weapons. You do that by stoking calamity. You do that by causing as much chaos as you possibly can. See, in these verses in the Bible, it says when these things begin to come to pass, the end isn't here yet, but it's getting close, right? So by causing as much calamity as possible, by trying to cause a World War III, by trying to bring humanity to the brink, the belief is that that's going to make Jesus come back, that it's going to result in the end of the world. This is seen all the way from the political activity of the evangelical sect that is trying to bring about the end of the world, to just the way that they pray. If I pray, and it's funny because growing up, and then being a part of the church, being a pastor and everything, these are things that I never really sat down and put together. And once I did, I realized that I didn't actually think this way. So in trying to bring about the end of the world and trying to force Jesus to come back, you are praying and hoping for the damnation of billions of people. You are hoping and you are praying for death and destruction to be rained down on the planet. In the church that I grew up in, we talked about, there's a verse in Revelation where it talks about how a third of the world is going to be burned. Basically, something's going to fall out of the sky. It's going to cause all this damage, all this chaos, and it's literally going to destroy 1/3 of the planet. Then it's going to result in the next verses talks about wormwood. It's going to poison the waters so that anybody who drinks it, they end up getting sick, they get disease, things like that, right? What does this sound like? Because to me, it sounds like a nuclear weapon. It could also be a meteor. But in today's day and age, when you have access to that little red button that can blow up 1/3 of the planet at any given point in time, and you believe that by doing so, you're going to force your God to return, what are you going to do with that power? This is why I constantly talk about how deadly and how damaging and how dangerous Christian nationalism is. It isn't just that they're trying to pull us back into the 50s. It's not just that they're trying to take women's rights back 100 years, or that they're trying to take the rights of the BIPOC community back 100 years. It's not just that they're trying to restart slavery. They're literally trying to destroy the world. That's also why they so vehemently despise and argue that climate change isn't real. Because based on those verses, you could interpret them to say that as climate change happens, that's bringing us closer to Jesus coming back. So we shouldn't be fighting it. We shouldn't be trying to stymie the tide. I don't know how the hell to say that word, but basically we shouldn't be fighting climate change because climate change means Jesus is going to come back anytime now. This is why Christian nationalism is so unbelievably dangerous, because they are literally trying to usher in the end of the world. When the Republican administration stands up there next to the Israeli prime minister and they talk about building what is essentially a new Jerusalem in Gaza, this is a signal to the Christian nationalists. We are working to try to bring about the end of the world. Why does it seem like the Republican president is trying to get us into World War III? Because the powers that be believe that that's a good thing and believe that that's the next step. That should terrify all of us, and it should make us all willing to fight back.